Hey, Sunshines. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We are going to pick up where we left off last week in terms of notes. So if you missed previous notes, you're going to want to go back and review the slides that are in Canvas. We are in the Origins of American Government notes. So if something doesn't make sense, you need help, you let me know. Send me a message in Canvas. Come see me when I get back in the building. Whatever you need to do so that we get you back on track if you're not where you think you should be in terms of notes or understanding things, you let me know how I can help you and I will gladly do what I can. Um, so we're going to pick back up with notes. I know it's going to be a little bit different with me in the computer screen and not in front of you. That's okay. You can pause, you can take a break if you need to, but follow along as best you can. And we're going to get through some things. So I know we've gone through the colonial period. We looked at limited government. We looked at John Locke. We talked about the colonial government structures that existed prior to the United States becoming the United States, and things that we've kept from the colonies to now. We looked at colonial legislatures, we looked at separation of power, and I believe we also got into the colonies starting to unite together and work together towards a common goal. And so we talked about King George III tightening control over the colonies after the French and Indian War, and colonists having to pay more and more in taxes. And we talked about all of that stuff last week. But if you're not sure, you need have questions, you let me know. I will gladly help you out or ask a friend or go back and review some of the notes that we've done before. That's also fine. Um, so as the colonies start to get more and more upset with Great Britain, they start to meet up together, start discussing what are we going to do about these plans that we're not happy with. And that's going to bring us into common sense and eventually the Declaration of Independence, which we talked about towards the very end of class last week. Again, go back, review if that doesn't make sense to you. Um, or come see me and I will gladly help you out. We talked about the Declaration of Independence being three basic parts, that it was a statement of basic human rights, and that Thomas um, Jefferson had said that everyone was created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among them were life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that came from John Locke, and that a big bulk of the Declaration of Independence was our list of complaints about Great Britain and why we were upset with the king and the British crown in general and just the entire monarchy and why we were ready to be done. And then it ends with just this final separation of, hey, we're going to be on our own, we're going to figure it out. Now, remember, the Declaration of Independence is a historical document, but not a legal one. There is no legal basis here. It doesn't set up a government. It doesn't do anything except say that we don't want to be part of England anymore. And England doesn't really care that we don't want to be a part of them. They'd like to keep us under their control, which is partly why the Revolutionary War lasts as long as it does. And so, because the Declaration of Independence does not establish a government, they have to create something that does. We can't have no government because then every state's going to go off into a state of chaos, and we don't really want that. We want our states to work together. So, our founding fathers are going to come up with our first form of government, which is called the Articles of Confederation. This was pre the Constitution. This is the first form of government in the United States. The Articles of Confederation is very different from the government that we typically think of today when we think of our three branches of government with the president and Congress and the Supreme Court. The Articles of Confederation only had one branch of government, which made things a little bit weird. They only had a legislature, so they basically only had part of Congress. They could make laws, but there was no president, there was no federal court system. They could just make laws. And the Articles of Confederation gave every state one vote. It didn't matter how big or small your state was, didn't matter if you had 5 million people or 500 people, every state got the same amount of votes in that legislative body. Some states that are really small love that idea. New Jersey, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Connecticut, those really small states love this plan. Virginia, large state, a lot of people, not as big of a fan of the Articles of Confederation. And before I get into all the problems with the Articles of Confederation, I do have to give it credit for the few things that it does that we have to acknowledge. It is our government during the Revolutionary War, so it is responsible for our war for independence, for getting us through the revolution and becoming an independent country. This was the government that did that. It's not the government we still have today, but this was the setup for government that got us through and helped us become the United States of America instead of part of Great Britain. The Articles of Confederation had some ways to resolve interstate disputes. Not a ton. They didn't have a major court system, but they could help resolve disagreements between states. They could issue loans. They could print their own money. So now we are able to actually print currency. And they created the postal system. So the post office system was created under the Articles of Confederation. And we're still using a version of that post office system today, whether you check your mail or not. That system was created under the Articles of Confederation. They also negotiate the peace treaty at the end of the Revolutionary War under this government, so we have to give them that credit as well. However, there are a lot of weaknesses in the Articles of Confederation. That's why we don't use it anymore. If it was perfect, we'd still be using it. And I'm not saying that our current government is perfect. You can have your own opinions. But the Articles of Confederation had a lot of flaws and weaknesses. One, it couldn't collect taxes, which means that the government has no money. The government gets money from taxes, whether that's income tax, property tax, sales tax. That's how governments make money. If they can't collect taxes, they have no money, which means they can't fund a military. They can't pay for roads. They can't pay for schools. They can't pay for fire departments or anything else that the government might fund that would make our society better. Without taxes, they can't do that. They couldn't regulate foreign and interstate trade, so they couldn't control what was coming in or out of states or in or out of the country. And if you can't control it, you can't tax it. It becomes a problem, especially economically. There was no way to enforce laws. They only had that one branch of government that could make laws, but they couldn't actually enforce the laws that they had created. In order to pass a new law, they needed 9 out of 13 states to agree. That's really hard to do. That's a supermajority. A regular majority would have been 7, which is already hard enough to get 7 whole states to agree on something. But needing 9 out of 13 made it nearly impossible to pass laws. If they wanted to amend the Articles of Confederation or change the government in any way, at a federal level, they needed all states to agree. It had to be unanimous. All 13 states had to agree on those changes, which makes it nearly impossible. Even just in your classroom, if you were trying to argue about something small, chances are you're not all going to agree on the same thing. So when it's a big issue about changing the government and you need 100% to vote the same way, it rarely happens. There was no executive branch, so no leadership, no president, no one to go and make treaties and various things with other places. And there was no court system to settle disputes, so no Supreme Court like we would be used to today. And because the Articles of Confederation is weak in these ways, the Founding Fathers recognized that they are going to have to make some changes. And with that, we are going to get the building of the Constitution and the Constitutional Convention. But before they get to the Constitutional Convention, there's a breaking point with the Articles of Confederation. And that breaking point comes in 1786 with Shays' Rebellion. In Massachusetts, the state had started taxing farmers at a much higher rate, trying to make more state taxes because states could tax, the federal government could not. And Daniel Shay is a farmer who's had enough of the taxation on farmers in Massachusetts. And so Daniel Shay and a bunch of other farmers are going to rebel against the taxes in Massachusetts. And they are going to take their swords and pitchforks and bayonets and muskets and march through Massachusetts, lighting things on fire, burning government buildings down, and essentially destroying most of Massachusetts. And the state of Massachusetts is going to place a call to that legislative body and say, hey, we need help. And I don't mean an actual phone call, but they're going to reach out and say, hey, we need help up here. We need something because we've got a bunch of angry farmers that are destroying our state. And the federal government says that really sucks for you, but I don't know how you want me to help you. We don't have a military because we can't afford to pay anybody and nobody's going to go fight in a war for nothing. We don't have any tax dollars to send you supplies. There's really not anything we can do to help you. And so Shays' Rebellion is going to go on for a while because there's no one to step in and send help. And this is going to put a lot of fear into other states as well, that what happens if this happens in other states? What happens if the rebellion doesn't just die out and these farmers burn everything to the ground and destroy everything? And so the effect of Shays' Rebellion is that lawmakers are going to realize that the national government has to be stronger, that the Articles of Confederation is not going to work. We wanted a weak government because we didn't want Great Britain 2.0. but what we've created is just not working. It sounded great when we created it, but 10 years later, this is not the plan. This is not the vibe. This is not what we need. We need something different because otherwise there's no way to avoid civil unrest. This is just too weak in security and strength, and it's not working for us. And so that's going to push states to send delegates to what's going to become the Constitutional Convention. And we're going to pick that back up when I see you in person. We're going to stop with this today. Please check Canvas for further instructions on what I need you to do and any other videos that I may want you to watch. Have a wonderful day. If you need something, feel free to reach out to me. I will see you all very, very soon. Make good choices, wear a seatbelt, brush your teeth, and have a fantastic day.